Good morning, you're watching A News. I'm Dilek Tuna. Here are the top stories for the hour. The United States will lift sanctions on Syria in a major policy shift. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced that the Israeli military will enter Gaza with full force. North Korean leader Jong Un supervised a firing drill and tactical training by military special forces. US President Donald Trump says all sanctions on Syria will be lifted. The move follows his talks with Saudi and Turkish leaders on Tuesday and comes ahead of his meeting with Syria's president on Wednesday.
All American sanctions on Syria will be lifted. That's what US President Donald Trump announced after his discussions with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan in Riyadh on Tuesday. Both nations had urged Washington to ease restrictions on Damascus.
And I'm very pleased to announce that Secretary Marco Rubio will be meeting with the new Syrian foreign minister in Turkey later this week. And very importantly, after discussing the situation in Syria with the Crown Prince, your Crown Prince, and also with President Erdogan of Turkey, who called me the other day and asked for a very similar thing, among others, and friends of mine, people that I have a lot of respect for in the Middle East. I will be ordering the cessation of sanctions against Syria in order to give them a chance at greatness.
The decision marks a sharp shift in US foreign policy. The sanctions, first imposed under Bashar al-Assad, had isolated Syria from the international financial system and blocked investment critical for post-war recovery. The United Nations welcomed the move. A spokesperson says lifting sanctions could help rebuild Syria's economy and restore access to humanitarian aid after more than a decade of war and underinvestment.
To see relief on sanctions on Syria, to help the reconstruction of Syria, to help the Syrian people recover from more than a decade of conflict, a decade of underinvestment, and we continue to support the reconstruction, whether it's physical or psychological, of Syria, for it to be a country where all Syrians of all faiths, of all ethnicities and minorities feel safe and represented.
The move was also hailed by the Middle East Program, an American think tank based in Washington.
There's a humanitarian reason to want the sanctions to be lifted, which is that the people of Syria have suffered under the sanctions. They've suffered from natural disasters in the past few years. There was an earthquake not very long ago, and levels of poverty are extremely high. One of the biggest industries is the drug trade. One of the biggest industries is the drug trade in Captagon, which isn't good either. So if you want Syria to be able to make it as a country and not fall apart into a renewed civil war, it makes sense that you would want sanctions to be lifted and to have a chance to work with Syria's leaders to try to bring that about.
However, Kalanick also cautioned that while lifting sanctions could offer short-term relief, the United States should remain careful when engaging with Syria's new leadership. She warned that despite the changes, the situation remains volatile, and there are no guarantees about the future stability of the current regime.
Damascus is celebrating after US President Donald Trump announced the lifting of sanctions on Syria. The move signals a major policy shift as Washington looks to re-engage with Damascus' new leadership.
Jubilant crowds flooded the streets of Damascus on Tuesday after US President Donald Trump announced the lifting of sanctions on Syria, a major policy shift that sparked celebrations across the country. Fireworks lit up the sky and residents waved flags in celebration.
To be honest, it's something joyful. We are very happy. I live outside Syria, so I'm especially pleased with this decision. As you can see, everyone is happy. Thank God. May it be for the good of the country.
I thank Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, King Salman, and all the Saudi people for this moment of chivalry. Their support has been with us from the day we began the revolution until now. A million thanks.
It is a very positive step if this really happens, and we hope for the best because the people are truly tired and the conditions have been difficult in the past period. We hope for the best.
We have been waiting for this for many years. It feels like a mountain has been lifted off our chest because now people may live more freely. I expect living conditions to improve in the future. It won't be immediate, but it will take some time. I believe this time has become a bit shorter. Congratulations to all of us.
The announcement comes as Trump is expected to meet President al-Shara in Riyadh on Wednesday, signalling a potential end to Syria's years-long isolation.
Donald Trump announced in Riyadh he will order the lifting of sanctions on Syria to give the country a chance at greatness. He called on Iran to make a deal or face maximum pressure and hailed a $142 billion defence sales agreement made with the Saudis. For more, we go to our Ubay Shapandar in Washington.
It is President Donald Trump's first overseas state visit, and he is in Saudi Arabia, meeting with the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and signing a string of major deals with the kingdom. President Trump was personally greeted at the airport by the future King Salman after touching down in Riyadh. Air Force One was escorted through Saudi skies by 6 Saudi F-15 fighter jets. The president was met with a grand ceremony in the Saudi royal court. Trump praised Mohammed bin Salman for his leadership and vision in modernizing Saudi Arabia. And earlier in the day, Trump and Salman oversaw the signing of multiple deals between the two countries, covering artificial intelligence, energy, defense cooperation, and mutual economic development. Overall, $600 billion of Saudi investment commitments with the United States was announced. On the defense front, Saudi Arabia is one of the world's largest purchasers of U.S. arms, and discussions are ongoing on the potential purchase of the advanced American F-35 fighter jet. The White House has also announced that the U.S. and Saudi Arabia signed the largest defense sales agreement in history, nearly $142 billion, providing Saudi Arabia with state-of-the-art warfighting equipment and services from over a dozen U.S. defense firms. Major American tech companies like Google and Oracle have also committed to invest billions of dollars in cutting-edge transformative technologies in both countries. On the energy front, the U.S. Department of Energy and the Ministry of Energy of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia have concluded an agreement for cooperation in the field of energy. This agreement builds upon the existing relationship between the two ministries. It will focus on collaboration in examining the potential for innovation, development, financing, and deployment of energy infrastructure. And U.S. chipmaker NVIDIA will collaborate with Saudi company Humane to develop a 500-megawatt data center, critical infrastructure for advancing artificial intelligence capabilities for Saudi Arabia, which seeks to be a global hub in AI innovation. And next up for President Trump are formal state visits to see the Emir of Qatar on Wednesday and the royal families of the United Arab Emirates on Thursday. It is a Middle East tour that is expected to come with additional historic announcements by the president, who is widely viewed in the region as a leader who can bring peace and stability and usher in a new era of U.S. economic cooperation. Mubi Shabander for A News in Washington, D.C.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced that the Israeli military will enter Gaza with full force in the coming days, despite ongoing ceasefire efforts and the release of an American-Israeli hostage. In a statement released by his office, Netanyahu said the goal of the operation is to defeat and destroy Hamas. Netanyahu stressed that the war will not stop, adding that while a temporary ceasefire could happen, the military will go all the way until the mission is fully accomplished. Previously, our Andy Mioch discussed US President Donald Trump's Gulf tour and the latest developments in the war in Gaza with political analyst Tom Gross. Tom shared his insights on Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's recent announcement regarding a full-scale operation in Gaza, as well as US negotiations with various forces that are in direct conflict with Israel.
In his previous presidency, he made an initial trip to the Middle East. Trump came to Israel and he gave a very warm speech at the Israel Museum in Jerusalem. This time, it doesn't look so good for Israel. Not only is Israel watching from the outside, but there is a disconnect between Trump talking about peace treaties and reality. At the very moment Trump was talking about the deal that he concluded with the Houthis in Yemen, the Iranian proxy group in Yemen, the Houthis fired a ballistic missile over Saudi Arabia, close where Trump was speaking, from Yemen to Israel. There is some profound apprehension because, as I just pointed out, the Houthis are still firing ballistic missiles at Israel, and America, without consulting Israel, Trump declared a kind of unilateral truce with the Houthis, leaving Israel to fend against the Houthis for themselves. I might add that Trump also didn't inform Britain that had been involved with the fight against the Houthis, another close ally of the United States. Vis-a-vis Iran, Trump said some very strong words against the Islamic regime in Iran, but words are not what Israel wants. Israel wants to know that the United States and others really will make sure that Iran does not acquire nuclear weapons. Israel has offered Hamas a ceasefire that would last about 50 days, and Hamas would release 10 living hostages. And Hamas have been turning this down because Hamas wants an end to the war that will leave Hamas in control. And by the way, Donald Trump also said he wants an end to the war, and everybody wants an end to the war, but it will not produce a better outcome in the medium term or even a little bit down the road, not for Israelis and not for Palestinians in Gaza, to leave the Hamas terror group in control. Hamas also terrorizes the population, the civilian population of Gaza. It will be better if Hamas disarms and a government, a Palestinian-run government, takes control in Gaza, a government that will want to live in peace with Israel. Hamas does not want to live in peace with Israel, and therefore to stop the war prematurely, it might seem like peace, but actually it's just a recipe for a bigger conflict a little bit down the line.
Sirens sounded in southern Israel on Tuesday night after military officials say projectiles were fired from Gaza into Israel. The sirens went off in areas near Gaza and western Lachish. The Israeli army say 2 projectiles were intercepted by the Israeli Air Force and an additional projectile fell in an open area. No injuries were reported. North Korean leader Kim Jong Un supervised a firing drill and tactical training by military special forces, according to state media. As well as observing the drills, he met with military officials and soldiers. It's reported that Kim said the most vital task is the completion of war preparations. During a visit to the Russian embassy in Pyongyang last week, Kim stated that North Korea would not hesitate to authorize the use of military force if the United States persists in what he described as military provocations against Russia. US President Donald Trump says he could see himself dealing directly with Chinese President Xi Jinping on the final details of a US-China trade deal. He made the announcement during an interview with Fox News on Tuesday on Air Force One. He was also asked about Qatar's offer of a Boeing 747-8 aircraft. Trump said it would be stupid not to accept the gift and mentioned that the jet would serve as the new Air Force One.
It was mentioned, but we don't talk about it yet. That's the opening up of China to U.S. business. And that would be like opening up a whole new world, and I think it would be even better for China. So I think we'll be able to make that deal, I hope. So anyway, so they said to me, we would like to, in effect, we would like to make a gift. You've done so many things. and we'd like to make a gift to the Defense Department, which is where it's going. And I said, well, that's nice. Now, some people say, oh, you shouldn't accept gifts for the country. My attitude is, why wouldn't I accept a gift? We're giving to everybody else. Why wouldn't I accept a gift?
China is eager to strengthen its technological ties with Iran, focusing on artificial intelligence, digital economy and telecommunications infrastructure. Beijing sees the cooperation as key to expanding influence in the region and fostering mutual growth. Our reporter Manur Maktoum has more.
Iran's ICT Minister Syed Sattar Hashmi is currently visiting Beijing to enhance technological cooperation between Iran and China. The visit highlights both countries' commitment to deepening ties in critical areas such as artificial intelligence, digital economy, and information infrastructure. During its meetings with Chinese officials, discussions centered around leveraging each country's strengths to foster joint cooperations and enhance bilateral trade. By engaging with Iran, China aims to expand its influence in the Middle East, promote the Belt and Road Initiative, and counterbalance the Western technological dominance. The partnership would allow China access to new markets and resources while providing opportunities for Iran to sidestep Western sanctions and accelerate its technological development. Both countries view this partnership as a strategic move to boost their position in the global tech landscape and reduce reliance on Western technology. The visit is part of a broader diplomatic trend in which China is increasingly deepening ties with a growing number of countries. From Latin America to Central Asia and now Middle East, China is positioning itself as a reliable partner in infrastructure, digital development, and political alignment. The partnership with Iran complements the strategy and reflects China's vision of building a more interconnected and multipolar global world order where China's diplomacy and innovation are increasingly central. Manu Maktoum, A News, Beijing, China.
And now let's go to Tehran, where our own Turaj Shiraliyu brings us the view from Iran on cooperation with China.
Iranian Minister of Information and Communications Technology, Syed Sattar Hashemi, is visiting Beijing to develop bilateral ties with China in the fields of telecommunications infrastructure and artificial intelligence. Syed Sattar Hashemi, who is invited by the Chinese Minister of Industry and Information Technology, Jongun, said in Beijing that the developing bilateral cooperation in the fields of communication infrastructure and employing the potentials of the artificial intelligence are the two main objectives of his visit. According to the Public Relations Center of Iran's ICT Ministry, several programs are organized for the minister's visit, including meetings with the Chinese counterpart and other officials in the field of communications and industries, as well as visits to universities and advanced industrial centers. According to the ICT Minister, strategic interactions with China, especially in the field of information technology IT, can play a significant role in Iran's economic growth and its digital economy. The ICT Minister also introduced the development of communication infrastructure, smart cities, energy consumption management, IT, and information processing infrastructure as serious needs of Iran and the most important areas of cooperation between Tehran and Beijing. Hashemi, who is a faculty member of the Shiraz University in Iran, is scheduled to deliver a speech at the Beihang University in Beijing on challenges and opportunities of the artificial intelligence. Turaj Shiraliyu, reporting for A News from ICT Ministry's headquarters, Tehran.
Azerbaijan and Turkey have reaffirmed their strategic military partnership during a high-level meeting in Baku on Tuesday. Azerbaijan's defense minister hosted his Turkish counterpart as both sides emphasized the importance of strengthening defense and security ties.
Azerbaijan and Turkey have deepened their strong relationship within the areas of defense and security. The Minister of Defense of the Republic of Azerbaijan, Colonel General Zakir Hasanov, welcomed the Minister of National Defense of the Republic of Turkey, Mr. Yashar Güler, in Baku during an official visit on Tuesday. The meeting was held at the Ministry of Defense and marked yet another milestone in the ongoing strategic partnership between the two nations. During the meeting, Colonel General Zakir Hasanov expressed his satisfaction with the talks and highlighting the positive trajectory of bilateral cooperation, reaffirming Baku's commitment to further enhancing collaboration across military sectors. Minister Yashar Güler conveyed his appreciation for the warm hospitality extended by his Azerbaijani hosts. He underlined the importance of mutual visits and high-level dialogue, noting that such engagements significantly contribute to deepening military relations between the two brotherly nations. The sides exchanged views on various aspects of bilateral defense cooperation, including military technical collaboration and joint initiatives in military education. Both parties also discussed regional security developments and shared perspectives on strengthening coordinated efforts.
Georgia's parliamentary speaker Shalva Papuashvili said that his country remains committed to pursuing EU membership. Speaking at a conference in Budapest, he criticised the EU's views on reforms in Georgia. Our Nikolashvili has more.
In Budapest, Georgian Parliament Speaker Shalva Papuashvili delivered a direct rebuke to the European Union, accusing it of interfering in Georgia's internal affairs and undermining democratic principles. Speaking at the conference of the speakers of parliaments of the EU member and partner countries, Papuashvili criticized EU's demands for a foreign-led vetting system for Georgian judges. He called this the violation of national sovereignty and claimed that no EU country would accept such external control over its judiciary. In his words, the centralized EU structure sometimes imposes terms that it would not accept itself. Papuashvili went further, accusing certain EU political groups of helping former President Mikhail Saakashvili and its allies to return to power, an effort that Papuashvili calls the blatant interference. The speaker also condemned the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, whose resolution in January led the Georgian parliament members to withdraw from the assembly. He said that this move shows the disrespect to people's democratic choice and confirmed the pattern of political pressure under the guise of European values. Papuashvili's central message is that Georgia remains committed to the European integration, but on its own sovereign terms, not with dictated ones. It's Nini Nikolaishvili reporting from Tbilisi, News.
Armenia's alcohol producers and exporters protested outside Georgia's embassy in Yerevan over alleged delays at the border caused by mandatory lab tests on the Georgian side. Protesters claim dozens of trucks bound for Russia have been stuck for weeks, causing millions in losses for producers, exporters and transport companies. They demanded urgent action to restore trade flow. Railway officials from Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan and Tajikistan met this week to discuss ways to expand cargo transportation along the China-Central Asia route. That has already seen a major increase since the start of the year. Fariza Kalimurzina brings more from Almaty.
In the first 4 months of 2025, container shipments from China to Central Asia saw a dramatic 104% increase. That's according to Kazakhstan's National Railway Company. This surge is largely due to stronger trade ties with China and improvements in logistics infrastructure. A key player in all of this is the TransCaspin international transport route, which is becoming a major corridor connecting east and west. Last year alone, more than 11 million tons of cargo traveled by rail between Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan. Right now, around 26 trains cross that border every day. 2024 was a record year for the TransCaspin route, with shipments hitting 4.5 million tons, a 20% increase from the previous year. Container traffic has surged nearly threefold, with over 56,000 containers transported. Experts say Chinese companies are driving much of this growth, with the number of container trains from China increasing nearly 35 times. Looking ahead this year, it's expected that 5.2 million tons of cargo will be moved through the road, much of it along the Middle Corridor. There is also a growing interest in the project from Europe, with Hungary and Serbia stepping up, offering their facilities and logistics support. Meanwhile, China is making major investments in this initiative. Authorities in Shaanxi province are set to invest more than $340 million to boost container transport along the China-Europe road, which will significantly accelerate transit through Central Asia. From Almaty, Kazakhstan, Fariza Kalimurzina, A News.
You're updated with world news for the hour. Just keep watching A News for more updates throughout the day.